بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين وضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لا مالكون وذللنا لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم. فاتحة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. روي فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام. قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت لهجك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيت به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلعلع كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عين وثمرة فؤادي. فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتعظن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء. فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عين وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختار الله أتعظن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء. فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فاقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فاقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. أتعظن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لواء قد عزنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم آتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله. أتعظن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا بنت ويا بزعتي قد عزنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وعما بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صل على محمد وآله. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال العمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. صل على. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتعظن لي أن أحبت إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط العمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد عزن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تعزن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت القصاء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. صلى على. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة النجية. ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة النجية، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله حما ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Assalamu alaikum. Mu'minin, can I request you to please recite with me? This is a qasida, but it is in the form of dua. Okay, sure. محمد وآل محمد صلوات. یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا کا ہے واسطہ، جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے جلد اب شفا. یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا کا ہے واسطہ، جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے. یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے. بیمار وطن فاطمہ صغرا کا واسطہ، معصوم کا یتیم سکینہ کا واسطہ. بیمار وطن فاطمہ صغرا کا واسطہ، معصوم کا یتیم سکینہ کا واسطہ. ڈوبا لب دریاؤ سفینہ کا واسطہ، اے میرے خدا شاہ مدینہ کا واسطہ. یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے. کرتا ہوں دعا رب سے میں یا حضرت سجاد، اے آسرا تمہارا تم ہی کیجیو امداد. کرتا ہوں دعا رب سے میں یا حضرت سجاد، اے آسرا تمہارا تم ہی کیجیو امداد، اے کون میرا جس سے کروں جا کے میں فریاد، امداد طلب ہے میری تم کیجیو امداد، یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے، بیمار کے لیے تیرا یہ ذکر شفا ہے، ہر اسم تیرا ان کے لیے ایک دوا ہے، بیمار کے لیے تیرا یہ ذکر شفا ہے، ہر اسم تیرا ان کے لیے ایک دوا ہے، تو کن فیکن ہے وہ تیرے در کا گدا ہے، تو چاہے تو ایک آن میں ہی ان کی شفا ہے، یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے جلد اب شفا، یا رب بیمار کرب و بلا کا ہے واسطہ، جو ہے مریض ان کو تو دے جلد اب شفا، بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Syed Asad Jafri, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Al-Fatiha is requested for the Isal Sawab of Marhumeen listed on the screen, and for all Marhumeens, Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. I am Yujib is requested for the names listed on the screen and for all those in need here and elsewhere. Let's recite together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. عمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء عمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Before I go into the announcement, it has come to the notice of management that there are cars parked in the handicap spots without the appropriate parking permits displayed. We would like to request whoever is parking in handicap spots to display their permits, and if you have parked there by mistake, please keep those spots available for the members of the community that truly require them. We appreciate your support in this matter moving forward, inshallah. On the announcements, on Saturday, March 12th, the ladies will have Awal se Akhir Wiladat Hujjah celebration for the months of Rajab and Sha'ban Khushalis here at the Masjid. Come one and all to join in this remarkable celebration with a mushaira, a play by our sisters, poetry, raffles, and much more. As we approach the blessed occasion of the birth of Imam Mahdi, Ajallahu Ta'ala Farajak, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please join us for a special day of fun for the entire family. On Saturday, March 19th, a car rally treasure hunt will take place starting at Masjid Hayy, along with outdoor games, bounce houses for the little ones, a delicious barbecue, and of course, ice cream. More details will be shared in next week's newsletter. We look forward to celebrating with you and your family, inshallah. Before I call upon our guest speaker, Syed Asad Jafri, to conclude this 3-night series titled The Power of Resistance, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the entire community to thank Syed Asad for gracing us with his time and knowledge over the past several nights. Syed not only provided us with knowledge over the past few lectures, but he was also there for the youth, providing guidance and direction on the topic of stress and anxiety during the Youth Beach event on Friday night. For those of you who participated in the 2-day course over the weekend, I'm sure you'll agree it was truly a life-changing program. The Renew the Self course energized all of us who participated and also gave us a sense of renewed hope as we continue to search for purpose and meaning during these difficult times. So on behalf of the entire community, thank you for being here for us and for coming to Orlando. And we pray for your safe travels home and hope you have enjoyed your stay here with us, inshallah. I would like to now call upon Syed to recite today's last majlis with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
شفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We send our tabrik, our mubarak, our congratulations on this eve of the Wiladat ba Sa'adat of our fourth Imam, Imam Zayn al-Abideen alayhi salatu wassalam. And also I'd like to express my gratitude to Masjid Hayy for inviting me for these beautiful nights. It was an honor for me to be here these past few nights, in meeting many of you for the first time, and I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses this community and that Allah accepts your amal, inshallah. Let's recite a nice loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. Thank you. For the past 3 nights now, my attempt has been to talk a little bit about resistance. In light of the fact that we are, of course, celebrating those 3 individuals that were the epitome of resistance against evil on the outside, and even the whispers of those around them. As I mentioned on the first night during Imam Hussein's Wiladat, that one thing that he is the embodiment of on the day of Ashura is this discussion on resistance. He had an opportunity. He was actually advised by some to simply become the silent majority. Just accept the fact that Muawiyah broke the treaty of Imam Mujtaba and made his son Yazid his successor. Don't give bay'at, don't go to Kufa, don't accept this khilafat, just stay in Medina and do what you do best. Lead the ummah, educate the masses, work with your companions. And that would have been a safer route possibly. It would have saved them all the anguish from the day of Ashura. But he didn't even for a moment entertain that idea. Instead, he knew that by him remaining quiet and not resisting what is normally accepted, he simply becomes part of the silent majority. And the problem is that when good people remain silent, the corrupt will rule. When good people remain silent, the corrupt will rule. We often wonder how individuals like Fir'aun, how individuals like Namrud, how these people ever got into power to begin with, let alone actually rule an entire nation and country. So tonight I wanted to conclude this mini 3-lecture series by looking at a little bit of the life of our 4th Imam. His story in all of this is very, very unique. And to my parents out there who have young kids or teenage children or even single moms out there, please, tonight is for you. I want you to come with me as I talk about a couple of things that are very, very important in our communities, in our homes. Before that, let me speak a little bit about our 4th Imam. You know that every Imam has a very khas and a very specific laqab to each Imam. There's a whole philosophy behind why, for example, he is known as al-Baqir or al-Sadiq or Jawad or Hadi or Askari. In our 4th Imam, he has 2 beautiful alqab. One is Zayn al-Abideen, one is Sajjad. Now he was 21 years old on the day of Ashura. Lived for about 30 to 33 years after the day of Ashura. He was the only surviving male from Ashura. And for 3 decades, he lived with that gham in his heart. See, sometimes I think that we don't understand what transpired on the day of Ashura. How could we, right? I'll never forget that I read the Maqtala of Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura many, many years ago in one community. It was a predominantly Urdu-speaking community. And I was going before the Urdu alim was, so I read my Maqtala in English. And I read about 25 to 30 minutes the Masa'ib of Imam Hussein. That's long for Masa'ib. And after the majlis, Faqa Shikni, and we're outside, and a few elders approached me and said, next time don't read that long, the Maqtal. It was too long. And I asked them, what exactly is long about it? I just wanted to learn. Would never confront my elders, but I wanted to learn. They said, we don't read that long in terms of Imam Hussein's Masa'ib. They said, Toheen ho jati Imam Hussein ki. I know there are details on the day of Ashura, but we don't want to hear them about our Mawla. It's like the Fatimiyya Masa'ib, Befri Fatima. Allah transpired, and not just the burning of the door. Allah transpired onto her, on Imam Ali, on the children, that we don't talk about. Simply because our heart can't take that much Masa'ib. And we're simply being told of the events. We've never witnessed anything. So imagine the fact that our Masa'ib is 10, 15 minutes on the day of Ashura of the Maqtal. Our Arab brothers, yes, they open the book, they read an hour and a half of every detail possible. That's their culture, that's fine. But some of us cannot take any more than that. We were not there, we didn't eyewitness it. We're simply being told through generations of what transpired. Even that we can't handle inside of our heart. Imagine being there on the plains of Karbala. Imagine Tile Zainabiyah. Imagine seeing the head of your father on a spear. Imagine now on a camel now walking past the trampled body of your father, and you can't even drop a fistful of khak on him, let alone bury him. You know, if any of you have lost your father, as sons especially, the one tasalli we have, right, a little bit of contentment is that if you were involved in the burial, a lot of people have lost their loved ones during COVID, and some were blessed to be beside them during travel restrictions. Others were not able to get to the bedside of their parents. And the gila and shikayat and complaint is always the fact that at least if I was there to do shirkat in the ghusl and the janazah, I would have felt better. But if you have the luxury, or you've had the luxury, and it's a luxury, to be there in the ghusl khana and wash the body of your father, you know that that's half the gham right there. That at least now I helped to bury my father. You would come home and the loved ones would ask you, kid, ho gaya sab kuch, tadfeen, dafan, talqeen, I got everything done. And I was there right beside my father. That tasalli is there. Even that was taken away from our fourth Imam. The trauma of the day of Ashura was in his heart, even till his very last breath. We oftentimes read in Masa'ib during the 25th of Muharram, when it comes to Imam Sajjad, that what? That on his last few moments in this life, Imam Muhammad Baqir, his son now, is holding his father. The head of Imam Sajjad on the chest of Imam Baqir, and Imam Sajjad is crying. Crying, saying time and time again that I'm leaving this world, my head is on your chest, but Shimma was on the chest of my father. 3 decades after the waqia of Karbala. So he held that gham and that grief his entire life. How could he not? And yet he's still known as Zayn al-Abideen. He's still known as Sajjad. Please follow my point here in the beginning. He is known as Sajjad. Sajjad, sighe mubaligha, is that person that does sajda profusely. Sajda, sajid, sajjad. Sajid is one who does sajda. Sajjad is one who continuously does sajda, over and over and over again. A man at the tender age of 21 with so much trauma inside of his heart, so much grief inside of his heart, carrying the images of Karbala inside of his heart for 3 decades, and yet he's known as the zinat of the servants of Allah. The beauty of the servants of Allah. Which means that what he used, the worship of Allah, to heal that trauma. To heal the scars of Karbala. When he had no one else to go to, he would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Pick up Sayf al-Sajjadiyah. Pick up his 15 munajat, his whispered prayers. That's a man who has written those du'as with a broken heart. Which means that he saw ibadat not as I see ibadat. He saw ibadat as a pathway towards healing his scars. We see, or I see ibadat as a checklist. Sometimes as a burden, God forbid. Have we ever seen salat to be an avenue of healing or hope for us? Or are we dragging ourselves towards the musalla? The fact that he's known as his 2 alqab, Sajjad and Zayn al-Abideen, and those were given to him after Ashura, I'm sorry. That means that he saw the ibadat of Allah the way we should see the ibadat of Allah. A lot of my youth today, a lot of your kids today are quietly suffering. Whether you accept it or not, whether you think that it's a hypersensitive generation, whether you think, oh, bade hassas bache aajkal maulana, they're so sensitive, that's a different discussion. But the reality is that they are an anxious generation. Because they live in a glamorized world. Everything is public. And yes, they choose to live in a public life. They post pictures, they post events, they post vacation, they post purchases, you name it. Everything's a hashtag, no doubt. That's the reality of today's day and age. But the fact that your child now is having a problem with body shaming, they feel ugly, they feel unaccepted, they feel all these things, is a reality. You can stick your head in the ground and say, no, not my kid, or you can face it head on. And I oftentimes tell my kids and my youth, and wherever I go, including the beach event on Friday, with the youth here in Orlando. And there are almost 50 kids there that day. It was a beautiful event. You have to start using worship as an avenue of your salvation. Stop looking at worship and the musalla and the mihrab as a burden. It's not. It's your healing. It's your 5 times a day where now you turn off the world, you go and you spend time with your Lord. And you get re-energized and you take that energy and re-enter the world. And you do it 5 times a day. My young guys have to realize the Sharia is not there to make your life difficult. It's there to make life bearable in a difficult world. If that means you have to rethink namaz, rethink fasting, rethink dhikr, then so be it. It's incredible. Sometimes it really angers me, I'm sorry to say, that, if a Western concept is presented, oh, it's accepted. Malana, you should try meditation, Malana. You should try meditation. You should try yoga, Malana. You should try being mindful. Nowadays, everyone talks about mindfulness, being present in the moment. These things are beautiful. How come Islam doesn't have these things, Malana? Why doesn't Islam talk about these things? Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, all of that is salat. All of it. Islam doesn't accept anything without a proper niyat. That's mindfulness, knowing why you're doing what you're doing. To the point where if two people are doing the exact same act, but the niyats are different, then the acceptance of those acts will also differ. It's all about being mindful. Even the movements of salat, the bending, the 7 parts of the body, all these things increase blood flow inside the body. I could talk about that for hours. These things have not come down just arbitrarily. Oh, 7 spots of my body have to be down for sujood. I have to bend to the point where my fingers hit my kneecaps. These things are not just random. There's immense hikmat behind them. But we have to go seek that hikmat. Not everything is on the alim. In this day and age now where everything is presentable in all platforms, from podcasts to serials, to series, to majalis, to cartoons, to movies, to small little clips, everything. You name it, you have it. Now the excuse of I didn't know, how should I know, where should I go, all that is slowly but surely going out the window. Why do we wait for others to come and validate our deen? Sometimes literally I hear sometimes these Western psychologists, these Western self-help gurus, these Western doctors of mental health, and literally verbatim they're giving me a hadith of Imam Ali. It's incredible how nowadays the biggest focus right now is gratitude. Jahan bhi dekho, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. You have to be thankful, be thankful, be thankful. And the youth today, their eyes light up. Yeah, he's right. It's all about gratitude. 1400 years ago, in shakatum la'azidannakum. If you are thankful, I'll give you more. I'll give you more. Be thankful. It's all in the deen. The problem is this, that we don't see the deen as a source of our solution. And Imam Sajjad is telling us that for 30 plus years I lived a life with the gham of Karbala in my heart, and my avenue to heal was the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can we at least attempt to give worship a chance? Can we at least try to see salat a little bit different? If that means that you destroyed the building of salat and rebuild it, and so be it. So be it. As I mentioned to you last night or night before, this generation of ours, our youth today, they really heavily rely on ilm and knowledge. But there comes a moment where you have to jump in the pool and take that leap of faith. Imam Sajjad relied heavily on du'as and dhikr and sujood to get him through Karbala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And he resisted the idea of him playing victim. Resisted the idea of him just saying, you know what, I went through what I went through on the day of Ashura, I'm going to leave the ummah alone. No, he continued to do what he had to do. You do know, I mean, all of you know the history very well. He comes back from Karbala now. 2 years, Yazid is still the Khalifa, still the ruler. And they saw the impact of Imam Sajjad's words in the darbar in the courtyard of Yazid. So he was not given a pulpit in Medina, not given a dars in Medina, not given any khutbah in Medina, nothing. All he was asked to do, you can go, you can lead salat in the mosque and go home. That's all you can do. You don't have access to anything else. Okay. In that very limited capacity, he was able to do what Allah asks of him. Lesson number 2 from Imam Sajjad. Let me explain. Every time he would go and pray salat inside the masjid, from the mihrab, he would go to the grave of Rasulullah. He would sit at the grave of Rasulullah, he would recite du'as. Right? That's innocent enough. As the enemy of Imam Sajjad, you look at this man, okay, he's busy in his own worship, reciting du'as. It's fine, it's harmless to us. He's not trying to start a revolution, he's not uprising against us, he's minding his own business. What they didn't realize was that after a while now, he had a following. People would follow him to the grave of Rasulullah because the du'as were mesmerizing. And the way he recited was mesmerizing. And so literally the same Jamaat that read behind him would go and sit beside him at the Prophet's grave. If you pick up and you read some of the du'as of Sahifa, and there have been papers written analyzing the du'as in Sahifa, it's a complete encompassing jami' picture of the deen. There's akhlaq in there, there's tawheed in there, there's ibadat in there, everything, but he disguised it as a dua. And the enemy to the point didn't even realize he was able now to what? To fulfill his obligation, albeit wrapped in the package of dua. Sometimes I have 1,000 excuses. I live in Toronto, it's from the west, blah, blah, blah. If I was in Najaf, I would be better. You know, here, there's so many shayateen here. We don't hear the adhan, let's say, from the mosque, this and that, this and that. And yes, we are limited. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, when we go for ziyarat, our iman skyrockets, no doubt about it. But the lesson from Imam Sajjad is even if things are difficult, if they're limited, if you can't do everything, at least what you can do is work within your means to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this Imam has an immense amount of lessons for us. And as a tribute to him tonight for his Wiladat and his Jashan, we can at least attempt to maybe apply one, if not both of these lessons. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The second thing I want to talk about tonight is something called religious trauma. I want my elders and my parents to have an open mind with me tonight, please. Sometimes I get blamed by my elders in a very loving way that I coddle today's youth. I put up with their dramatic anxiety and stress. And all I hear is, Maulana, aajkal ke bache, today's kids. And there's a long list of shikayats and complaints. If we stop to listen to what's going on with them, then maybe we might have a little bit of empathy. I want to present to you a couple of our hadiths. But before that, I want to open up this discussion on religious trauma. You know, we have, in the world of abuse. We have different aqsam, different categories of abuse, okay? There's physical abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's emotional abuse. There's something also called spiritual abuse as well. And spiritual abuse is as a child growing up, let's say, in their Sunday schools, in their schools, in the masjids, in the communities. When it comes to spirituality, they go through a lot of trauma. Okay? So it might be the fact that, let's say, for example, you're reading Quran with your teacher, and you read the Quran wrong, and you are punished for doing that. So my mom would tell me that growing up in Karachi, she would have a Quran teacher come to the house, teach everybody at home, and he would come with a stick in his hand. A danda in his hand. And if she read the fatah as a kasra, the kasra as a zamma, she'd get hit on the hand. And that's quite common. It happens in school back in the day as well. And we think, oh, that's what made us strong, Maulana. But that's not the way you teach a child. I don't care what generation you're from. That's not acceptable behavior. It's a social norm, doesn't mean it's right. Now that extreme doesn't happen in our communities. What does happen in our communities is the zero tolerance of error when it comes to our kids and the deen. If you have a sister who's just trying to wear her hijab, and I'm not condoning this, but she's not wearing it properly, let's say, in your eyes, you have two choices. You can either judge her, ridicule her, scream at her, embarrass her, to the point where she won't come the next day, or you can quietly, lovingly guide her towards the right path. There are some of our kids who complain to me, flat out, to my face, that, you know, sometimes I have spoken to ulama, I've asked them questions, and they ridicule my questions, or they yell at me, or they embarrass me, or they expect me to have the answer, so I'm not going to say anything. If that happens when you're 8 years old, 9 years old in some Sunday school class, where someone says, you know, you don't have any shame, you have no idea how to do wudu, you're 10 years old, in front of the entire class, that's spiritual abuse. And that's religious trauma. Now you sit there and say, oh, this is too much, mana, ye bache jo hai. Hold on now, hear me out, please. I need your open mind tonight. Okay? Because it's not the way it should be. They don't see religion as an avenue of salvation. They see religion as a trauma response sometimes. If I don't do this, if I don't come to the mosque tonight, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be punished, and that's okay to push your kids, I get it. But understand, why is it that they're scared to read Quran in public? They're scared to give the adhan in public. If they make a little bit of a mistake now, they get ridiculed. Itne bade ho, tumhe azan nahi aati tumhe. You're so big, you're 15, 18, you have no idea how Baba, he's learning the adhan. Maybe he has no idea how the adhan is. These kids carry a lot of religious trauma inside of them. Now the effect of that is a lot of things come with religious trauma. Number one is that they have an immense amount of a low self-confidence, low self-esteem. They won't reply to you, they won't look you in the eye, they won't say salam to you. We think they're being battamiz. We think they're being rude. They're scared out of their mind. That someone might comment on my outfit, someone might say that my hair is too long, they might see some piercing on my face. Ye kya, you go, bunda, what is this, right? All these things are there. They might sit there and tell me about this, about that, so they avoid. They put their head down, they come in the mosque, they listen to me, and they walk out. And we think, no tarbiyat, aajkal ke bacche, and I get it. They have a role to play. Let's understand where they're coming from. Okay? The second thing is that there's an immense amount of doubt they have inside of their brains. And I talked about that last night. They can't understand sometimes when things are very clear to them. They find some shak in it. Things that are black and white for my elders, things that are completely yaqeen for them, is not the case for our youth. So they question everything to the point where our elders go crazy. You shouldn't question this much. That comes from the idea that sometimes the religion was not presented to them properly. It wasn't. Let me tell you a quick story from, one of our Islamic books. Every Saturday in the Hawza when I was there, every Saturday, from 11 a.m. till about noon for 1 hour, they would invite a major marja or a major mujtahid to come and address the entire school as a dars akhlaq. Okay? So we had a massive auditorium, about double this size of the hall inside of our school. And there was stadium seating, just like an auditorium, and the Ayatollah or the mujtahid would come and sit on stage and deliver a 1 hour in Farsi dars akhlaq. Okay? In one of those durus, he narrated a story. And he was addressing the teachers of the Hawza. So today I'm addressing the parents of our youth today. I'm a father of a 14-year-old, so I'm addressing myself as well up here. First is me, and then maybe is you. All of you have things figured out. I don't. I have a 14-year-old. I'm still trying to figure it out. So he tells us this story, a beautiful story. I want you to please follow me. Before that, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. He says there was this young child who was studying in the Hawza in Qum. And he wanted to go to Najaf to study there as well. Back in the day, before Saddam, of course, Najaf was the markaz and center of the Islamic Hawza. Anybody who's anybody went through Najaf. So his ustad, his teacher says, you can go, no problem, I think you're ready, go, benefit, come back. So this young boy now, it's the life of a student, right? There isn't much to his name. He's not very wealthy, his parents aren't well off. He finds a qafala traveling from Qum to Najaf on ziyarat. He decides to join that qafala to get to Najaf. All he has are few clothes and of course his books, right? For a Hawza student, the books are everything. Halfway towards Najaf now, they decide now to pitch up some tents and spend the night. What was very common back then, was that looters would come and loot these qafilas coming from Iran towards Najaf. So in one night, in one stopover, this qafila now is approached by a bunch of looters that want to rob them. So they announce to the qafila people that you are to take out all your belongings, put them in the pile in the middle, and we'll take them from you. All the young guy had was books. Old books with notes in them, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So he puts his whole bag in the middle. These guys scoop up everything and they begin to walk away. The young kid with a lot of jur'at, a lot of courage, approaches the robber and says, look. Part of your robbery are my books. I don't care about my clothes and my money, but my books is everything. Can you please just give me my books back, please? That's all I need from you. They're old, they're ripped up, they'll have no value for you whatsoever, I promise you. The robber says that in the distance you see there's a hill. Yes, there's a light shining on the hill. Yeah, this is 3 o'clock in the morning, by the way. Okay? He says, go to that, and there's a man there. He's our boss. If he says to give your books back, we'll give your books back. It's a beautiful story. This young boy now, again, more jur'at, right? You're going now to the mafia boss, right? You walk towards this hill now, and you see there's one man in sajda praying namaz-e-shab. looks around, he sees nobody else, but okay. This man is done, he says, what can I do for you? He says, are those your robbers? He says, yes, they're my robbers, yes. He said, look, they've robbed my books. Can I get my books back, please? He summons the robbers, give this kid his books back. On his way away, he stops now, and he's curious, just like you and I are, turns back and asks the guy, he says, what were you praying just now? I was praying namaz al-Shab. So you pray namaz al-Shab, but you loot the zawar of Imam Ali? He said, yes. Can I ask you what that's about? He said, it's the only thing I do. The only thing I do is namaz al-Shab. I don't sleep at night, I'm up all night. It's the one thing I do. And sometimes, that might sound weird to all of you, but sometimes there are things that we do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we do no matter what the situation is like. And sometimes we feel better about ourselves. It helps us justify sometimes, or helps me justify my sinful life. So here you have a man who's robbing innocent people, the zawar of Imam Ali, but to justify that somehow, he's praying namaz al-Shab. The kid said nothing, grabbed his books, went to Najaf. Weeks passed by, he went to the dhari of Imam Ali, this young kid. Every day after class, he would go and send salam to Imam Ali. One day he goes to the haram, beside him he sees a man crying, wailing on his knees, begging. He looks down, it was the chief Mafia boss who was praying namaz al-Shab. He says, do you remember me? He said, the books kid? Yeah, the books kid. He said, what are you doing here? He said that you are the only one who asked me that one question. Why would you pray namaz al-Shab while you loot innocent individuals? There are moments, my sisters and my brothers, and I really want you to give me your hearts tonight. There are moments where a young 17-year-old kid walks through that door, okay? And maybe after 6 months you haven't seen this kid. And with a lot of courage now, he walks through that door. He knows he hasn't been here for 6 months. He knows he's not the best follower. He knows he's not the best believer. He might even have some long hair down to his shoulders, maybe tight jeans, maybe a weird shirt on, who knows? And he musters up the courage to drive his car to the parking lot, park in that parking lot, make that very difficult walk to the front, avoiding eye contact, walking in. And we never know with what hope he enters this masjid. We never know. I don't know what the motivation was for any of you to come to tonight's Jashan. No idea. Many of you just say, look, it is Mawla's Jashan, I can't miss it. There are some of you right now who are at rock bottom, who are struggling. And maybe through the path of Imam Sajjad, he might be able to rescue me from my pain. So any person that walks through that door, you don't know what baggage they're carrying. It could be that this kid is at rock bottom. He's tried everything. Drugs, women, music, you name it. Everyone closed their door. He thought, you know what? Tonight is Khushali, tonight is Jashan. Let me get a little bit ready and let me, with a lot of himmat now, enter this mosque. Hopefully, the atmosphere here, the dhikr here, the khushi here, the colors here, mashallah, maybe that might ignite some hope inside of me. He enters that door and the first person he meets is some random person saying, oh, look who decided to show up today. Oh, Eid ka chand, mashallah. Where have you been? Oh, you came for Niyaz, right? Steak and fries today. Maybe that's why you're here. And all his fears now are justified. He tells himself, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have come here. I knew it was a mistake. That one meeting. Let's be very careful. There's too much judgment in our communities, Ya Allah. Too much judgment. If we hear about a single mother, let's say for example, who's raising her children, and we look at her, we think, oh, this is why she is divorced. If she just did this more, she would have had her husband. Let's worry about our own iman. Why are we so concerned about everybody else? We have everyone else's akhir figured out. Everyone, Jahannami, Jannati, Jahannami, Jannati. We have everyone figured out. Wallahi, we do. We don't have ourselves figured out. We have a nuskha, a prescription, a solution for everybody. If you just did this more better, you would do this. And I get it, it comes from a very, very good place. But sometimes you don't have to say everything. Sometimes you don't have to say everything. We have to cut the judgment out of our communities. It's none of anyone's business what happens to other people. And you don't know, maybe out of your love, but your one statement might push a youth away who's on the edge of a cliff, who came in here for the dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt looking for a solution. You don't know. Imagine that kid walking in with his funky hairdo and tight pants on and, I don't know, mismatched socks. For some reason that's a fashion nowadays. The socks don't match. That's a fashion nowadays. Imagine he walks in and the first person he meets embraces him, welcomes him. We missed you. So nice to see you. Let's have some chai. Let's have some mandazi. You dip, I dip. Don't dip too much, the whole mandazi falls into the chai. Let's break some bread. Let's have some tea. How have you been? Where have you been? All his fears are gone, and you might see him on Thursday. You might see him at the drive-thru for Sha'ban. You might see him in the month of Ramadan. Who knows? That's how much power we have. Let me share with you one hadith. Imam Jafri Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hadiths. These are treasures. Treasures of the Ahlul Bayt. I wish sometimes, as a side note, I wish sometimes my young guys were a little bit more proud of their madhab. You know, I remember, I'll get to hadith in a second. Sometimes when you're up here, a thought pops in, you have to address it, and then you go back to your hadith. Just bear with me. I remember I saw one story of an NFL football player. Okay? NFL football player. He was at a practice facility, and he was going home from his practice facility before the season started. Walking towards his car, this young 8-year-old kid with his jersey now and a Sharpie runs towards him looking for an autograph. Okay? Obviously, this football player was a role model of this kid. He must have had posters in his room. He must have had all sorts of merchandise. And for the first time now, he's about to meet his role model. He runs up to him, "Can you please sign my jersey?" And this football player pushes him away. Maybe a bad moment, maybe a bad day, maybe he's tired, maybe he's in a hurry, who knows? But it takes 3 seconds to sign a jersey. Pushes him away. And the kid's face, he's devastated. And the caption on this post is, "Never meet your role model." Never meet your role model. You're bound to be disappointed. Except for us. We have 14 role models. You name me once in their life, and 250 years of sunnat. From the moment the Prophet left Mecca to the moment our Imam went into Ghaibat. 250 years of infallible sirat. Infallible sirat to follow. You name me once, any Imam, any Ma'soom, anybody, did something where we were embarrassed to call us their Shi'as. They never embarrassed us. They never did something wrong. We have never said that maybe if Imam Jawad would have done this, it would have been better. Maybe if Imam Ali was a little bit more patient here. Maybe if Imam Hussein was... No, never. Everything they do for us is a hujjat. Have that pride. My young guys, your search for role models, athletes, celebrities, they're nothing. You have 14 with you. Now the hadith. Our sixth Imam says, there are 10 rungs to the ladder of spirituality. Okay? He compares spirituality to a ladder. And there's rungs of a ladder, right? 1 rung, 2 rung, 3 rung. As he says, as you go up the ladder of spirituality. And all of you have your respective stories, right? There are moments where, you weren't so religious, you weren't so spiritual. Malana, I wasn't the best when I was younger. I went to Karbala, I went for Hajj, I had a reawakening, I had a pivotal moment. Now, mashallah, I'm turning. All these stories, and those are great stories. So you're climbing up that ladder of spirituality. Imam Sadiq says that as you reach from the first rung to the second rung, don't look down on those people that you just passed with eyes of judgment. As you're passing by them on the ladder of spirituality, don't kick them because they're on level 1. Extend your hand and help them come up to level number 2. Look at that hadith. A little bit of taqwa. A little bit of taqwa now. And the eyes of judgment. Baba, you were like that just last week, man. You just found the hairs on your face last week. Before that, mashallah, you were shaving in the parking lot. You just found it. Now all of a sudden, you should grow a beard, you should go for a Hajj, you should go. Okay, and that's great. Nasiyah, that's great. But just be patient. The judgment that we have. Imam Sadiq says, if you had tawfiq to go up 1 rung, the way you thank Allah for that tawfiq is bring somebody else to that second rung. But do it with a little bit of dung, as they say. Do it with wisdom, as they say. Don't do it with the eyes of judgment. I don't know where we get this from. The Prophet of Allah, you've seen the history in the Sunnah. You know how much he dealt with individuals that were not at the same level as him. The patience. I'll give you one quick story. We hear these small stories every single day, right? Every single day we hear these stories of the Prophet of Allah. It's in our madrasa books, everything. Let's apply them. He's sitting in a circle with his ashab. He's having a little bit of a jalasa, a dars perhaps, okay? And halfway through his dars, a poor man comes and joins the circle. You've heard these simple stories. We tell our kids that. Books are published. You have to apply them once in a while, right? Let's remind ourselves of these quick stories. A poor man comes, the only spot available was beside a rich individual. A very wealthy man. The poor man comes in his ripped up clothing, comes and sits beside the rich man. This is during the Prophet's discussion. And the rich man, the moment the poor man sits, he does this. Makes sure that there's no sort of touching of my kapra with his kapra, my fabric with his fabric. And the Prophet stopped his dars. So are you worried about the fact that maybe his poverty might be transferred? Are you worried about the fact that maybe he might have impact on you? Why would you do that? The rich man was embarrassed. To the point he was so embarrassed, at the spot he offered half his wealth to the poor man. And the poor man says, if this is what the wealthy is, I don't want wealth. Thank you very much, Ya Rasulullah. The Prophet would not put up with judgment, looking down on somebody. And sometimes we look down on people spiritually. We smirk and we give them a side glance. There are some people that have, there are some people who have the outward figured out. They have nice abaya, beautiful hijab, not one hair is showing. A beautiful beard, a nice kanzu, a nice abba like me. Right? I look the part, mashallah. So I look like on the outside, like I'm the billboard of Islam. What is inside my heart, I have no idea. God has no idea. Maybe there's hypocrisy inside my heart. Maybe there's nifaq inside my heart. Maybe this is all a show for all of you. You have no clue what I do behind closed doors. You don't know what I do when no one's around. I know my haqiqat. I know my reality. Then there are those that maybe don't have the outward vision of Islam. Maybe she's not wearing an abaya to mosque. Maybe her hijab is slipping past the bangs. Maybe all these stuffs. But her heart is cleaner than yours. Cleaner than mine. I'm not condoning the convertible hijab, nor am I condoning no beard. I'm not condoning any of that. I'm condoning judgment. Who gives us the right to judge anyone's iman? Baba, help them. Extend the hand out. Reach up. Pull them up. If you belong to a very muttaqi, pious family, if you are surrounded by piety, if you are surrounded by religion and spirituality, you should be religious. I know individuals that have no business being religious because their family actually ridicules Islam. Then I know people who should be religious and are not because their family is piety. Every individual has their own path. Every individual has their own capacity. We are not to judge. Because that judgment is what is causing our spiritual trauma right now. There are people who are running from our masajid because of the judgment of each other. Comments by our aunties and our uncles sometimes that talk about the fact that you're not pregnant yet. Why aren't you pregnant yet? Or they walk in and they've gotten a little bit of COVID weight. Oh, wow, you've ballooned up. Oh my goodness, what happened to you? How come you got so fat? And we think, it's up and up on our right. Oh, they know that we know. I'm like her mother. No, but you're not her mother. You're not her. You're not his father. We have to stop and think about these things. Are we welcoming these youth? Especially right now, what's happening in Orlando. Are we welcoming these youth? Anytime we see them, breaking bread with them, offering them chai, saying, welcome, please come in. It's so nice to see you. And yes, sometimes we have to do that as elders. We have to stop comparing our generation to theirs. Even my generation, I'm born and raised in Toronto. I cannot sometimes connect with today's 15, 18, 19-year-old. I try, I don't get it. So I try to go back to basic principles. I ask you humbly, as a son and a brother of yours, let's adopt some of the lessons that the Imams have left behind. The open-mindedness of the Holy Prophet. Atheists would come at the door of Imam Sadiq, looking now to ridicule the deen. A man would come to our fifth Imam and says that, you believe in the Creator? Yes, I do. I'm also a creator. You are? Yes, I am. So believe in me as your God. That's not a man who's asking a question to actually know knowledge. That's a man who's asking a question to show his own knowledge. Did our fifth Imam says, go away from me, you're wasting my time? No, it was fine. Show me, what can you create? I can create worms, he says. Worms. Great, let me see you create worms. He brings some garbage, makes it a little bit of moist a little bit, and voila, worms are there. So look, worms came. I created worms. He goes, great. Now tell me between these worms, Imam Muhammad Bakr, which worm is male, which worm is female? He goes, I don't know. He's okay, fine, you don't know. Just command the worms, as the creator of these worms, command them to all move towards the left or move towards the right. They're all scattered. I can't do that. The point is open-mindedness of the Ahlul Bayt. It's not just about the Zulfiqar. Open-mindedness, approachability, tolerance when it comes to those who maybe come from an experience or a family that's not as pious as yours. Extend your hand. Bring them up the ladder. Let's not judge everybody. Everyone has a path. Help everybody on their path. If Allah gave you tawfiq to be someone who is religious, share that tawfiq, Baba. Share it. Don't snatch someone else's tawfiq, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this month of Sha'ban to accept our amal. Inshallah, help us with these difficulties we have. We have difficulties in akhlaq, in our aqidah, in our theology, in our tawheed. We beg you, Allah, in these trying times to keep us on this path of Islam, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of the Ahlul Bayt, to keep that love inside of us, to pave the path towards the return of our Imam, and make it so that we are beside the Imam when he comes. Thank you very much for your patience. May Allah bless all of you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
No.
With the loudest of your voices, Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, salawat. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters, and Kushal Mubarak to you all. I'll recite a small munajat for 4th Imam, and inshallah end the program with the qasida for 12th Imam. Once again, Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, salawat. Ya Rab, dua kabul ho, abed ka wasta. Ya Rab, dua kabul ho, abed ka wasta. Ibn Hussain Syed Sahajat ka wasta. Ya Rab, dua kabul ho, abed ka wasta. तारीफ तेरी करता रहा ज़िंदगी तमाम, तारीफ तेरी करता रहा ज़िंदगी तमाम। اے کردگار بس اسی حامدی کا واسطہ، یا رب دعا قبول ہو عابد کا واسطہ. All together please. یا رب دعا قبول ہو عابد. بیمار کربلا ہے لقب اس کا اے خدا، بیمار کربلا ہے لقب اس کا اے خدا. ہو دور یہ مرض تجھے عابد کا واسطہ، یا رب دعا قبول ہو عابد کا واسطہ، یا رب دعا قبول ہو. میرے گناہ بخش دے اے رب العالمین، میرے گناہ بخش دے اے رب العالمین. تجھ کو جناب سید سہجات کا واسطہ، یا رب دعا قبول ہو عابد کا واسطہ، یا رب دعا قبول ہو عابد، آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام، آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام، آپ پر درود اور سلام، آپ ہی کے آسرے پہ جی رہے ہیں ہم، آپ آئیں گے تو دور ہوں گی رنج غم، کر رہے ہیں التجا غلام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام، آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے امام، خانہ خدا کو قید سے چھڑائیے، مولا آئیے اب آئیے اب آئیے، لے کے ذوالفقار بے نیام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام، آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے، تیری راہ دیکھنا فریضہ ہے میرا، منقبت نہیں ہے یہ عریضہ ہے میرا، پر رہا ہوں میں جو صبح و شام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام، آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے، آ رہے ہیں آپ، اڑ رہی ہے یہ خبر، سامرا کی سمت ہے لگی ہوئی نظر، سج رہے ہیں راستے تمام، اے میرے